I will call the September 14th, 2022 meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee to order. We do have one member who is remote, so I'll take roll call attendance. Aaron Hunt.
Here.
Todd Lindmark.
Here.
Chris Baker.
Here.
Justin Yanosik.
Here.
Aaron Kinney.
Present.
And the chair is also present. So first item is public comment. If we have anyone from the public that wants to make a comment, just raise your hand. We do have someone in the audience. She's shaking her head no. Okay. First discussion item, please discuss September 13th meeting with the planning board. So Ron, we could hear you talking before about it a little bit, but maybe we'll talk officially on the record now.
Sure. So for the record, we had a meeting with John and Chad and Rich prior to the meeting on the 13th, where our civil engineer and the town engineer reviewer, Phil, could go through all of the items that were discussed in the previous meeting. That meeting made a lot of progress on the drainage, the setbacks in terms of like the surface drainage setback from the street. And so basically they were, I don't want to speak for them because we'll cover it in the next meeting, but at that meeting they were okay with everything except they were looking for more information on the parking. It was suggested then to figure out like what other town buildings have done. So during the meeting last night, we just simply presented that using the same approach that the police station took, which was a non-recreational public facility, amounted to calculating the usable floor space within the building and then dividing that by 300 to get to the number of spaces. So when we do that, using that calculation, we came up with 23 spaces, which is similar to the 20-something that we had come up with back in February, March, and April when we informally met with the planning board. And I think we then reviewed the building inspector's letter of his approach to what would meet the bylaw, and just did a very quick comparison as to why we came up with different numbers, because we're using a different approach. And the planning board agreed to grant, well, they took a non-binding vote, which unanimously passed, straw poll they were calling it. So the straw poll was unanimous that they would provide a special permit to reduce the parking, which is allowed by the bylaw. So as you can imagine, that took an hour, and at the end of the hour, they basically decided to continue the public hearing until October 11th, I believe. Steve?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
At which point we will reconvene and just go over the other open items that we had discussed prior to the meeting. And so our task right now is to get them the marked up drawings. And the one thing they asked for, Aaron, was a letter from the design review board talking about the appropriateness of the exterior view. We did review the exterior design, and they just asked us how white is white and gray is gray. And we told them that the contractor will mark up some samples of the color for everybody to approve prior to painting the building. I think that covers everything.
So have those plans been sent over to Beta yet, Ron?
No, there was a couple of things that I noticed last night during the meeting about some of those documents, and I've asked Marissa, our engineer from Niche Engineering, to just draw up a few different things, a few notes that I think would clarify some things. And also, we're putting the site sign on the plan. They've asked for the site sign on the plan. And the one thing, Amanda, that we're looking for, and I apologize I couldn't find it today, is the list of abutters. They've asked for us to actually put that list of abutters right on the plan, so name and address.
Okay, I can send that over tomorrow.
Okay, perfect, because we'll just cut and paste that onto the plan. And then, Kevin, to your point, they shouldn't be getting these things any later than end of the day Friday.
Yeah, because I know they just wanted to get Phil's feedback so that basically it's hopefully as quick as possible on the 11th.
I can
It
get
sounded like they
I
had
came
a
up.
lot
Wow.
of agenda items to get through, so they want us to go as quick as possible, I think. Which hopefully it should. I mean, this will be the third time we've met with them, so. Okay, and Aaron, do you think there's a letter that the design review board can put together? I know they were looking for that last night, so. they
Yeah, I'll
put it
follow
in
up
advance
before,
as well.
see if we can't get it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else have anything from the planning board meeting last night that they want to talk about? All right, please discuss preparations for meeting with the select board. So we are meeting with the select board after this meeting. Hopefully it doesn't overlap, but Amanda's going to let me know when we're up. We're a few agenda items in. The main topic of discussion is to present the bidding, the special town meeting vote, or the special town meeting, and then the ballot vote timeline, and then when construction starts. So, Steve, I know you said you were updating the schedule to present.
Yeah, you want me to, I'll put that up on the screen.
Yeah, if you could. And then maybe kind of walk through any changes that you made since last time. Oh, do we have to make you
A co-host?
host, Steve? No? Here we go.
No, can you see that?
We can now,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. So I didn't adjust it a lot because we did forward that to the select board. But what I did, and Amanda, this was something that you gave us the information on, is I did include a period for printing of the ballots, which was a great point. We gotta have the amount that we're asking for on the ballots before in order for them to properly vote on it. So I added that into the schedule. Everything else is pretty much the same. And what I did is I highlighted a couple of things that were key to this schedule, because I made some assumptions on dates on, for instance, the town meeting vote and when the debt exclusion ballot vote may be. But our general contractor bid opening is scheduled for the 22nd of December. And per the Mass General Law, the GCs are obligated to hold their bid prices for 30 business days. 30 business days gets us to the 3rd of February, which is actually, I think, like 29 days, but that's a Friday. So you're really not going to do any kind of award on a weekend. So I pulled it back to the 3rd as being the date that we would have to award the contract at the amount that was the low bid. So the items that come in between that are important is the town meeting vote, getting the ballots printed, and then the debt exclusion ballot vote. But as we learned from Jeff Nutting, that if you wait, there's a 35-day period between the vote that the select board would have to vote to authorize the debt exclusion ballot vote, which that was not going to work for our schedule. So the idea was we go back where we're meeting with the select board to sort of go over this with them tonight. And again, I don't think we're going to get them to vote on anything tonight, so I sort of plugged in the next meeting, which may not be the right date. It's essentially a month from now that they would vote to authorize that to go as quickly as possible once we get into January. And the other dates are really just filling in things that we have to do. It's sort of an overall schedule. As far as when we're posting to Central Register, when the ad appears, bidders briefing and so forth, and then, the general construction timeframe here. But, the discussion with the select board is them voting early enough to allow for the debt exclusion ballot vote to be set up.
Yeah, so.
What is the select board going to need to be done so they can vote? Do we know that?
Can you ask that question again, Aaron? It chopped up a little bit.
Do we know what items the select board is going to require in order to vote?
I don't, other than presenting them this schedule. I mean, they saw it in their agenda packet. I don't know if they're going to want to discuss it after this meeting and then.
We'll find that out at the next meeting, basically. I was assuming that, giving them the schedule and bringing it up on their agenda may be enough, but if there's something else, we'll find out at 7 or whenever we're up with them in the next hour.
And just to clarify, their meetings in October are the 4th and the 18th.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
And that doesn't hurt us at all. I can make that note.
Yeah, Steve,
Yeah.
if we came back to 35 days, what is like the drop dead date that we would need the select?
Well, it can even go into November.
Right.
At that point, it's just we want. I think we want to have that locked down before December.
Sure. Yeah. And then I think the other thing that we just need to find out tonight is if they're going to have anything else on that ballot for and I don't know what else it could be, but the only other thing that's been brought up to me is that possibly adding another select board person, and then I think that stretches the timeline out to 63 days instead of 35. So we'd want to know that if they're going to do that or not, because then that compresses the timeline a little bit more. So.
And I guess my question on that, because there may be difficulties there, when would they know who's going to be on that ballot well in advance?
Yeah,
I'm not sure when people have to put papers in for that.
Yeah, I think we can ask the question tonight to see if it's even on the table. They might say it's not, and then it's a moot issue.
Even if it is, I feel like it might be worth explaining the timeline issues and the constraints that creates.
Right.
You might, well, I guess we could figure out the date, say like, this is the last possible date the current select board can make the decision, and if they add another person, this is the last possible date they can make that decision, to kind of emphasize the point that like, this needs to happen in the correct order to get the bids that we're looking for.
I don't think they would add another person before they voted on it. It's if they're going to have an election for a select board person on the ballot, then now it goes from 35 days to 63 days.
Right, but I think,
Prep time.
but just saying whatever that date is might
Right.
help emphasize. I mean, I don't want to read into anything, but I feel like they know that this is coming, and they
Right.
know they have to do this, so I don't think it's that radical for us to ask them to do it now.
Will that make it so we can't meet that 30 business days? Or is that a different part of the timeline?
The 30 business days is from when we get contractor bids to when we need to award to the contractor. It doesn't have anything to do with the vote,
Okay,
really.
It's between their vote and the actual ballot election, or the town meeting.
Right,
ballot
so
election.
we need to have the contractor's bid in hand
Okay.
prior to the town vote.
Right.
And then the town vote has to be timed out that we can award within the 30 days that we got the bid from the contractor.
Okay.
But can you award it before the
No,
Town
because we don't
meeting
have,
vote
because
is
we don't
on?
have the money.
Yeah.
We need
We have to
the
wait till after the
vote.
ballot vote, and then it's almost, at that point, we'd just be waiting to send them the contract, because it's getting that close.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Or at least a notice of award letter, something to give them, some kind of paperwork that says we're going to issue them the contract. The thing about it is, someone had brought up, waiting, pushing it off until spring because, of the seasons and so forth. But the problem with that is the more we push it off, and when we've discussed it a lot lately, and I think everybody is fully aware of the inflation and escalation, especially in construction, and it's basically running about 1% a month of the construction cost estimate. So, if we were to wait until March, we'd be almost $600,000 that we might as well just tack on to the construction bid, based on the trends that are happening in the construction market now. I think Paul has a question.
Hand raised.
Yeah, I feel compelled to speak about this. I think that is a major assumption that we're making here, based upon, I guess it's your past experience. It sounds like the contractors need to hold the pricing for 30 days per law. Have we not considered extending that in the bid? I mean, this is a large project that we're putting out there. Would not contractors be inclined to hold pricing if that was a stipulation included in the bid? Or maybe put another way, could we say, if this goes beyond 30 days, explain to us your escalator that you might want to include in the project?
Well, this is a lump sum bid, so the price is essentially the price. We couldn't negotiate with them after the fact. The problem with putting that into that kind of language into a bid is there is Mass General Law that states what that time period is, so they don't have to abide by it. Even if we put something, we can't write something in the spec that is against a statute or a law. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. I'd love to say, have them hold their price for 45 days or 60 days, but I think the reason that law is in effect so that towns don't do that and say, well, you know what, we're going to have you hold your price for a year while we, try and figure something out. So they set a time limit, and there's, I read through the Chapter 149, 44A law again today just to make sure that there's no exception for extending that. So that's pretty much what we're locked into. And again, that 30 days is business days. So it gets you, it's not 30 days in a row, which is good. But, the 30 days comes out to be that first week of February.
And just if I could follow up on that real quick, I'm sorry, what is your capacity again? Are you architectural or consulting or legal?
We're the owner's project manager.
So would it be, again, I think this is such a major assumption on which this timing is based. Would it be worth getting a legal resource to review that chapter that you just cited so that we make sure that we're interpreting it correctly? Because again, it sounds like that at a minimum they need to hold their pricing for 30 days. And again, I don't work in municipal bids myself, but I do work in the land of bids. And I ask for, exactly what I mentioned all the time in my own bids. And, for contractors who really want the business, we'll know who's willing to sort of play ball, so to speak. Would it be worth having a second look by a legal resource at that section that you just quoted before we hang our hats on that being gospel, so to speak?
Well, I'm sure we could ask town council to look at it. We've been down this path before in other municipalities. I think I would say it's up to the committee to discuss whether we want to go that route. I mean, we do have town council available, but it is Chapter 149. Mass General Law, so
yeah. I'm just kind of giving you the soft sell on that. My hope is that a legal resource would look at this and concur with your opinion before we line everything up based on, your read of that chapter.
I don't mean to interrupt here, but we might have a Zoom issue. I think we might have logged in with a non-administrative account and it's saying that it's going to kick us off in 6 minutes. So we might need to log off here and then let everybody back in once we're in the administrative account. Amanda, is that true?
I think so. I don't know how that meeting could have been in both accounts. I don't have access to both of them, but I guess I do. I don't know.
It's showing Blythe.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out in 6 minutes.
But I guess
I'm not cutting anybody off if that's what happens.
we can discuss the question. I mean, I don't think there's any harm in asking
there's no
legal
harm.
counsel to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why
we were
not?
talking to them today about something else, so we have their emails. I mean,
Yeah.
we can certainly put that forth, later on tonight or tomorrow. I don't think it's going to take them very long to say, what their opinion is.
Sure. No, I think that'd
I
be
think
good.
that won't affect the select board meeting because we got to talk about it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Stephen Paul, again, this is Aaron chiming in. I mean, I agree with Steve's interpretation of the Chapter 149. It's state law, and it's while one would like to think there's some options in the bidding, it hasn't been my experience either. But I also agree with the fact that town council is going to have to look at our whole schedule to make sure we're aligning with all of the different town bylaws in terms of voting and everything. So this would be just another part and piece of it. I think it could slide right into that review.
Yeah, we can do that. That's what you want us to do. We can initiate that, email with Tom Harrington.
Yeah. I think you should, Steve.
Okay.
And then I don't mean to, hog the floor here. Thank you for that. I think that anything that may be said to the board, you might want to caveat it, and we are just having town council review that section. Here's our proposed timeline, caveat with there is a planned legal review of this section just to make sure that we're interpreting our, necessary requirements correctly. Rather than go in and say to the board, here's our timeline and it's an assumption on this and that. I wouldn't want to see it, because I'll be at the select board meeting as well, and I guess I'll voice my same concern if it's not, but it would be appreciated if you can caveat it with that, if that's
So we can do that. We could just add it as part of my narrative.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. So I think we might need to log off and log back in.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes, so this might be a good time.
Yeah,
I don't know why that,
Okay. Let us,
so sorry.
yeah, I guess.
5-minute recess.
5-minute recess.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then I guess try and log back in, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. I think we're
Thanks, man.
back.
For what?
Right.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on other people try and get back in, I guess.
Yep.
All right. So I think that's everything for the select board.
Yes.
Okay. Discuss building design related topics. So the MAAB draft letter. So I was going to give an update that town council just said to send a letter, but then I think you had a conversation with them after that, right, Ron?
We did. So today we discussed. So you wanted to know the big picture. So we explained the big picture that there's a lot of things that you just cannot do in a fire station that meets the MAAB requirements. He fully understands that. He has some experience with the MAAB. His experience is they're not usually very accommodating when it comes to a brand new building. They typically give, variances and things like that for an existing building being renovated. So with that, he just wanted a little bit more information. We gave it to him, information such as, so these things, there's literally no way, we can't do it, right? You can't make something that doesn't exist. So then we also sent him the Word document so he can wordsmith it. I think he's going to amend the letter a little bit, just put a little twist on it with what he thinks it should say or how he thinks it should read. He thought it was a good letter, but he just wants to modify it just a bit. He also agreed with the approach, Kevin, that you and I had spoken about, which is let's send this in. Let's see what the MAAB says in terms of an opinion, right? An advisory opinion is what it's called. And he's also going to try to suggest to them that here's our request for an advisory opinion on all these items. Can we meet on a Zoom call to discuss it? Because I think, Steve and the team and Tom, like everybody agrees that there's nothing going on in the Norfolk fire station that is any different than any other fire station in Massachusetts. So, to that end, like all these other fire stations have gear extractors and equipment like this, or situations with their kitchens and so forth that maybe those design teams or that client never bothered to ask, or as Justin pointed out once before, sometimes it's frustrating for the fire stations, right? Because you get some things that just don't make any sense. So from that perspective, the decision was that we're going to send in the advisory opinion request and then take it from there. And if the MAAB comes back and they're just being obstinate or they're just disagreeing with everything that we're trying to do, then his recommendation would be, or he would speak to the building committee in the town about designating some of the areas and spaces within the building as non-public. So.
All right, so he's gonna revise the letter a little bit, and then you'll send it out. And
yeah, he's just gonna wordsmith the letter a little bit, and then either we'll send it off to the MAAB or he will under his letterhead.
And how long does it usually take to get a response?
2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, we don't. Well, I should throw that out there, right? So in the normal world, pre-COVID, you send in a letter like that to the MAAB. I think they meet at least once, if not twice a month, and they usually, publicly say we got this advisory opinion request and we're going to respond to it. I think Tom's approach of not only sending the advisory opinion letter, but also requesting that we just have an informal discussion about it, might even mean we get a quicker response. At least they can pick up the phone or agree to Zoom with us. And we also told them that we don't think it affects the schedule if we get all this squared away by early October. Especially since his opinion was if they're not willing to bend on some of these things or at least consider what we're saying, then, he wouldn't have a problem, recommending that we just go the non-public route on some of these things.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Anybody else? Okay. Update on GC and file subbid pre-qualification proposals.
Yes, the proposals were due yesterday at 2 o'clock. They came into our office in Weymouth. We received, and I had previewed this on the last meeting, but we did receive well over the 3 required for general contractors and all file sub-trades, with the exception of the elevator. We only received 1 proposal from the elevator. That will require us to go out again to try and get 3. And if we're not successful the second time, then we'll make a decision, most likely to advertise that as a standard file sub-bid when we go out to bid, and not a pre-qualified sub-bidder. We got roughly 100 file sub-bid proposals. We got 11 GC proposals. I'm planning on going to my office on Friday morning to pick up the hard copies. My suggestion is that I probably split those up for you guys to take a look at. And my question is, how do you want me to get the hard copy proposals to you? What's the easiest way?
I guess.
I'll drop them off somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
What time frame are we looking at here? Because I'm not around next week, so.
when do you think you can get them down here, Steve?
Well, I'm going to the office on Friday. I could get them there Friday afternoon.
Well, town hall's closed on Friday, so maybe you can just bring it to you directly,
Or even, would it be appropriate to leave it at the fire station?
I could bring them to the fire station.
Yeah, bring it to the fire station, then we can both pick it up from there.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a couple different boxes, but
Enjoy your
what
vacation.
we're also going to have too is we've gotten thumb drives, and Laurie Cabral from my office will be uploading all those thumb drive files, and we're going to set up with our IT that there'll be like a Dropbox links or something like that, so that you could do potentially do things online. It gets somewhat a little bit cumbersome with these, but we did only ask for 2 hard copies just so there wouldn't be boxes and boxes and boxes. So we'll give you Ron and Kevin, Justin, the link for that, but I was going to give you Kevin, Justin, the hard copies, and then I was going to take a full set of hard copies to go through, if that makes sense.
When do we plan on completing this by?
Well, our goal is to be complete and through this by the 30th.
Okay.
Which is I think I have that. Yeah, I have on the schedule. Having our review by the 30th and getting our pre-qualification notices, because we have to send a written notice to each contractor that they were either pre-qualified or they're not.
Yeah.
And we wanted to get those out by the middle of October, which again, it is plenty of time. If it's a day longer here and there, it's not the end of the world.
And so Justin and I are just reviewing this to say we agree that these are all qualified. We're not ranking them or anything like that, right?
There's, like I said before, we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this, as far as reference calls and the point allocation for each of the qualification questions. So once we get this and you start looking at it, I'm gonna set up a remote call. Which, Kevin, if you're away all of next week, you said?
No, I'm here. Justin's away.
I'm away from the 18th to the 23rd.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure who was talking to me. Okay. Well, then okay. Then the week of the 26th, we can probably have a call and just sort of go over the status of what we've uncovered. Again, I got to say, a lot of these are the same contractors that we see all the time, and we've done a number of pre-qualifications recently, so we can utilize some of the reference checks without having to call the same people again because of the proximity of the time frame. Others we will have to make some calls, because there are a couple that responded that not familiar with, but if they don't have a DCAM certification, then they won't qualify anyways. We just haven't gotten that far yet. So
Okay.
we can set up something. I'll put something out when you come back, Justin, so we can have a call on that week of the 26th.
And we can do it earlier. I can try to make arrangements depending on what time of day it is. Just, I don't want to force everyone to have to scramble towards the end of the deadline.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. And
Again, it's a lot of information, but it's
Vacation.
it's pretty standardized.
you can flip through the documents.
We really use the same formats and spreadsheets, and the questions are relatively pretty much similar. It's really just the type of building and that type of experience is the
Donna, how are you?
the item that changes.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, maybe just send something out for that Monday, Steve, and if we can get that to work,
Yep, that's fine.
we can, and then maybe,
Monday afternoon.
yeah, if we don't hit the 30th to get it back to you, maybe it's the following Monday, the 3rd
Yeah,
or something.
it's not critical like our previous discussion on the contract.
Yeah, okay.
So that's all I have on the prequel update.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, it's
Okay. Review siding comparison memo. So I think you had a spreadsheet you wanted to share, right, Ron?
I do, yep. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Alright, let me try to get this out of the way. Alright, so if you can see this, we basically looked at 3 items once we took the wood option out of the mix. So Todd had given us a material called Serpentine Monogram Series, because obviously whatever we do needs to hold up to 140 mile an hour winds. We did get the price back today, and by the way, our 60% CD estimate is in. We just got it last night, or late yesterday afternoon, I should say, and we're vetting that, Steve, before we send it over. Going through some line items.
Okay.
So what you see here is the initial cost for the polyash. Right now, the estimate to do the design that we have, right, and which is the combination of clapboards, board, batten, trim work, is $614,515. Fiber cement, such as the Hardy plank, would be actually a little bit more money than that at $622,085. And the vinyl siding would be $352,255, which is a $200 and some odd $1,000 reduced cost as compared to the polyash. So, I mean, right away the fiber cement is more money, right? So maybe we just focus on the vinyl siding for the moment. So the vinyl siding, from what we researched in this, it won't peel. Meaning it's colored through and through. It does not need to be painted. It does not rot. And it says it's rated for 140 mile per hour, but we're checking that with the manufacturer because there are several notes in this product. We know that the other Certainty products that are not rated or marketed to be the 210 mile an hour does not meet it. So when we looked at this, there's a couple of things. So the product is relatively new. The manufacturer has told us that it is not available in any kind of board and batten look. So basically, it would be all clapboards. The second thing is that in order to achieve the high wind rating, every nail on this that you put in for the siding has to be embedded in a wood stud. Now, interestingly enough, the word wood stud is there because as a Category 4 building, or this building in particular, we're using backup walls of metal studs and concrete block. So the manufacturer's going to get back to us about fastening this into metal studs. It cannot be fastened into concrete block. So what we would need to do is our concrete block walls, we have 4 inches of insulation that wrap the building. We would have to put wood studs at every location for the siding. Now, the problem with that, obviously, is you put studs either 12 inches or 16 inches on center, sometimes even 24 inches on center. We would need to talk to them about how do you nail. So if the nail pattern on this particular building, given the height and 140 mile an hour wind, you know, they may require, let's say they come back and say the 16 inches on center is fine. So that would work basically for the field. but every time we have a door opening or a window opening or a corner to turn, we would have to be adding extra studs in order to make sure that what we're fastening in actually hits a stud. So, I mean, that's just a long-winded way of saying that it's not the typical installation that you would use on a house, right? The other piece of that, which was pointed out to us during these discussions, was that the product really was designed and is appropriate for new construction of single-family homes, multi-housing projects, and light commercial developments. And that's actually right in their product literature. I honestly don't know if the technical rep I was speaking to knew what a Category 4 building was, but he very quickly pointed out that, look, this is what this is for, right? Again, it only comes in a 4 to 5 inch clapboard look. We're trying to find out exactly what type of testing that they do, so there's more to come on that, and we can find out. So the next thing, and those were kind of the positive things, right? So the positive things is you don't have to paint, it's not going to peel, doesn't rot. When it comes to the rating for the wind, that's still up in the air, but we're giving them the benefit of the doubt right now. It is a plastic product. Actually, the PVC that they use is very similar to the PVC. And yes, it does give off toxic environmental off-gassing, if you will, when it burns. It melts. And when it enters a landfill, it's PVC, so it's continuously going to leach elements into the ground. The product is a sheet good, which is going to show the seams over time. This material has to expand and contract. So when we were talking about screws, there was a little hesitation there on the side of the manufacturer, basically saying, well, okay, but you can't screw it in, right? Because you got to leave a space in the fastener for this to move. It's also not watertight, and that's it's more of a rain screen. The issue is that this has a tendency to lead to mold and mildew on the backside of the vinyl, where it can't be seen for cleaning. But let me just skip to the cleaning, because when you clean this material, it should be cleaned every year. So what they're recommending is that every year you do a quick scrub, which will revitalize the siding. If you skip a bunch of years, you can actually paint this material. So you don't have to paint it, but if you don't keep up with the maintenance, you can paint it. They actually make paint. Sherwin-Williams has a super paint. It's actually called super paint, and that's the product you use on PVC siding. They recommend that you do not use high pressure sprayers. You use a soft brush and a low pressure garden hose to clean this. So it's not, they do not, in fact, right in their warranty, it says avoid using a power washer. Any strong force of water will cause water to accumulate behind the vinyl siding, placing the siding at risk for cracking and warping. There was more to that sentence. And growth of mold and mildew behind the panels. And then as far as painting goes, it's performed exactly the same way you would paint, any kind of siding material. There is a vinyl specific paint. We looked it up. It's the Sherwin-Williams super paint. The warranty is voided if there's water damage, if there's insect damage. So one of the things that was interesting is insects will build their nests in the gap behind the vinyl. And so if there's water damage, insect damage, wind damage, so that's in their warranty. We're not sure how that applies to a building that's supposedly rated for 210 miles an hour. Improper installation, unintentional abuse, which is the same as any other product, and the improper storage or shipping, which again is the same for every other product. So, we are, and I think it's important to realize that, we don't sell any other kind of siding. So we have nothing against vinyl siding. We believe it has its place in the industry. We just want to make sure that when we're done with this building, whatever is chosen for the siding, it works. And so to that end, you know, the warranty on the polyash, it's not susceptible to water, so water damage it's not going to get damaged. The insects can't get behind it. The wind is not an issue. It really comes down to improper installation. Any product we get has to be installed properly, no question about it. Unintentional abuse or damage, so you know, no beating on the siding when it's done, and the improper storage. So, and both of these, the polyash and the vinyl, they'll tell you that it will be, you know, it lasts the life of the structure. James Hardy is a 30-year warranty. Again, assuming that none of these things happen.
So I have a couple of questions there. The
Yep.
$320,000-ish estimate, that I'm assuming doesn't include the price of wrapping the whole building in exterior framing of 2x4s?
That's one of the line item things that we're asking the PMNC. So what we did was we sent the product information to PMNC and we highlighted some of these things that are on the product literature. So we went on their website, we got the product literature, we highlighted some of these things, and we put it in an email, sent it to the cost estimator, and said, hey, you know, keep in mind, this is the situation. And they came back with, now you may remember that the regular, so this is about $100,000 more, or just over $100,000 more than the regular vinyl siding.
But that doesn't include the 2x4s yet.
We don't know. I have to. We have to get PMC to confirm that. I would find it difficult to believe it does, but we need to find out.
And then on the polyash, it says storm damage for the voiding the warranty. That
Yep.
could be rain, water, snow, ice. That could be a whole number
I
of
think
things.
that means like, you know, projectiles hitting the building or trees falling on it, or yeah, we get a 200-mile-an-hour wind, you know, and it blows some shingles off, or blows some clapboards off.
Can we confirm what that means, Ron?
Storm damage?
It
Yeah.
seems like a broad
Yeah.
term.
Yep. You know, yeah, sure, we can do that. I think they use, well, I don't know. See, the thing is it's not susceptible to water, right?
And
So just like any other warranty in the world, they gotta avoid it if something happens to the material. So we can check on that.
Well, just because something happens doesn't mean it's automatically voided. You could have the siding and damage repaired and the warranty confirmed.
Correct. Yep. Yep. You know, so the bottom line is that's the end. Keep in mind also that both these prices, the 622,085 and the 614,515, that is not only the siding, but that is painting the siding, right? Because both these products are going to go up and need to get painted, and even the fiber cement product, which is the more money than the polyash, you know, every time you get the factory finished, if you will, where it comes painted a certain color, they always recommend all the touch-up. You have to paint all the edges that are cut while you're installing it, and so you know there is painting costs associated with the fiber cement, whether we do it all at once or we don't.
And the polyash is the material that's in the current estimate.
Yes, this is what we've looked at, the samples of the building committee and so forth. As far as the maintenance, that's in the budget. As far as the maintenance costs, you know, the fiber cement, again, they tell you it's zero, but you have to clean it, and I'm trying to find out like what's the cleaning durations. The polyash, it's the paint. So whether you would have a painted fiber cement or a painted polyash or painted wood, you know, whatever you need to do there in in terms of keeping the paint clean is what you would do. The 50-year cost, we're kind of thinking that if you painted it 3 times in 50 years, it would be $104,148 based on the estimate that we have in there for painting. So we would assume painting this 3 times in 50 years, since the James already has a 30-year warranty, then in 50 years we would suggest maybe it gets replaced once. And obviously that's in today's dollars. The monogram series says you never have to replace it, but you do have to wash the building. We're trying to get a quote on what it would cost to wash the building. And even though it says every year, recommended, it's once a year, seasonal. Maybe we're going to use a number for every 3 years, because again, it's not like a power wash, and the building is 46 feet tall. So we're going to be talking about like lifts and things like that go around the building to wash the building. So, we can still get a little bit more information. I think that's why it says draft. But I think, as I explained to Kevin, we don't have all the numbers right now to kind of be able to show this to everybody, but we are, but we think the important thing to put together here was the description of the differences in terms of performance, and in terms of sustainability, where it just comes to the fact that, we're making a conscious effort not to use materials like PVC in today's world.
I lost my train of thought.
I mean, I don't see anything on here that justifies moving away from the poly ash.
Well, other than the price of the vinyl siding, I'm just wondering, that seems like a pretty drastic change in the look to the building to go with a clapboard type.
To me, it's look. That's number one. But the big thing that stuck out to me is what the material is actually intended for. Nowhere in there is it intended for a commercial building, a fire station, public safety building, or something like that. So what happens if we save a little bit of money now, but then we find that it gets beat on and it comes off and we have issues with it and we have to replace it in 10 years? Then all that savings is gone. And then people are going to start asking questions. Well, why did you use something made for residential buildings on a commercial building? That was not very smart.
And am I understanding correctly, Ron, that the wind loading is still TBD? So we don't know if it'll meet the wind loading of the building, or we do know that?
So in other words, they say it's tested for 210 miles an hour, and then there's an asterisk next to it. And we're trying to figure out what actual test, if they say it's an ASTM test, if they say it's an FM test, what is the test criteria, right? Because we all know that if you take a square piece of material and you put it in front of a wind tunnel, or you put it in a wind tunnel, and it's 90 degrees and you're blowing wind against it, and every one of your fastening locations is fastened into a structural stud, it's probably not going to move. Now take that thing, turn it, right? So now the wind's hitting it at an angle. Remember, there are these vertical seams within this. So, just from a due diligence point of view, we just want to know more about the test. Yes, it's been tested. It's got some locking system, which is a different type of locking system that we've never seen before, and it is proprietary to certainty, but that's okay because, we're doing the poly ash as proprietary. So let's just figure out, what is that test? How is it conducted? Does it make sense? Does it pass the straight face test? I think, to your point, Kevin, our only concern would be if for some reason, the material just doesn't perform or something happens. This is clear and present right on their literature that it's appropriate uses for new construction, for single-family homes, multi-housing projects, and light commercial developments.
Light commercial, sorry.
Yeah, definitely like commercial.
So, one more thing, like you said, it's going to change the complete look of it. We've put a lot of effort into the look of the building at this point. We've put it on foam boards. We've brought it to public events. People have seen this. A lot of people have seen this and said they like the look of it. What's going to happen, when we're going to vote it in, less than 4 months at this point, and it looks completely different? I don't feel like that's going to go over very well.
I mean, I think this is a good exercise in the justification as to why we made these decisions, but I think if we're doing it to try to switch what we're covering it in, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just doesn't seem like the vinyl siding's a good long-term decision here. It'd be nice to see if this cost includes the studs or not, because then that makes the decision even more
Right.
clarified. But
And that's definitely one of our questions to PM&C.
yeah, and the wind testing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's some questions here, but I think this is more an exercise to show why we selected the siding that we did, and I agree with Chris that to change the look of the building at this point to a product that we don't even know will be able to stand up to the use that it's going to be applied to seems a little foolish. Any other opinions?
I like doing the due diligence and being transparent about the pricing and what the decision was and why is the key, so that we know and the citizens know it's an informed choice and decision based on what's in the best interest of the town and the project long term. Sometimes these things have upfront costs that are going to save you on the back end, but upfront it's going to cost you a little more. So it's just, so hopefully we'll get, more information and we'll know, especially, I think it's a no-brainer if it comes back and there's extra costs because we have to put extra studs or wrap the building in with 2x4s to make it perform the way it's supposed to. I think, then it's a no-brainer. But, if that isn't the case and there's a way to do it, then maybe it's something we, continue to discuss or sift out. But I agree with you too on the look of the building. There was a lot of time and energy and effort put into the look of the building to make it fit the town feel and to make it, look nice and be a good.
Good. How are you doing?
To fit the look and the feel of the town center, and I think it does change the architectural look and the look of the building to change it from what it board and batten and what is there to being all clapboards.
Yeah, I think during our public meeting with the largest turnout that we had at the library, there was a lot of discussion about the aesthetics of the building.
Yeah.
That got us to that point.
So I think we should probably complete the exercise, but
Just so you know, I'm interested to see if the lumber is included in that. I can't imagine that it is.
yeah. Okay. All right, so I guess let us know if you have that updated for the next meeting, Ron, and we can review it one last time.
Okay.
Okay. Please review Mass Save Energy Committee meeting on September 14th. So that was earlier today, obviously, so I don't know what update you or Steve want to give.
Sure. So the good news is the EUI has gone down a little bit. We're at 37.7. The green engineer, who is working directly for Eversource and Mass Save as their technical advisor, essentially what they're going to do is they're going to look to see if we can qualify for the Tier 1. The green engineer didn't have any suggestions on how we could save further energy without putting in a geothermal system. He did suggest that we continue our due diligence and see if we're making sure that the equipment that we're buying, such as the gear extractors and the appliances and all of those components, are the most energy efficient we can get. He also suggested that we look at that with the chief in detail about, the usage. Like, is this piece of equipment run 8 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 2 hours a day, things like that.
The plug load.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the plug loads right now are the biggest thing that we just want to reconfirm. Also, after the call, the chief, we were talking about the temperature settings, right? So one of the things is because the building is so energy efficient, basically one of your lion's share usages is your heating system. And so what we talked about is, maybe we take a look at what is that set point temperature for the apparatus bays. Maybe we can keep the apparatus bays at 60 or 65. Maybe we can also talk to GGD, the mechanical engineer, about how to have possibly a sensor within the space that would actually turn on and turn off the heat. So even though you're in the heating season, there could be times where the heat is not on until the temperature goes down to a certain point where, it would kick on. So it's just a little bit different in terms of a temperature sensor that's in there, because obviously you open the doors and you're going to get a big blast of cold air, right? So that's just something, and GGD was on the call today, and so we're going to follow up with them just to talk about the thermal set points inside the apparatus bay, because it really is a big space. And we want to do the same thing for the cooling. So, maybe that cooling in the apparatus bay never comes on until the chief turns it on, right? Because as the chief said, we got some D-strap fans in there. The doors are typically opened on a beautiful day. They're not typically opened when it's freezing outside. And, if they open the doors, on a day that they feel is comfortable, like a 55 degree day or 65 degree day, then they don't want the AC turning on, even if they decide to open the doors on a 80 degree day, but there's a nice breeze and the fans are going, maybe there's a way we can reduce the energy, put that into the energy model. Because the reality is this: if we provide an energy model that's obviously completely transparent and as accurate as we can be, and it has a 36 EUI, then the project will be put into tier 1, which means you get more money up front, and then a year later, as they come and check out the performance of the building, you again get more money. If we submitted it today, for instance, and it's 37.7, unless Chris from the Green Engineer, and he offered to do this, he's going to go back to talk to Eversource about the fact that we're pretty much doing everything that he would recommend in a building, short of putting in a geothermal system. So a building that happens to be a full-time fire department that has, bunk rooms, living quarters, it's just a very difficult thing to do to get to EUI 36. He did mention on the call that there's another fire station in Massachusetts that has an EUI lower than 35. However, that is a volunteer fire station. There's no bunk rooms. It's essentially an apparatus bay and some office space. They don't man it overnight, and it's all volunteer. So,
but we asked for their energy model if they could get permission to send it to us.
Ron, I sent you an email that I was copied on from the chair of the Energy Committee, and he was asking more about geothermal. I think the return on investment period. I thought you or GGD had put something together at one point.
We did.
Yeah, I don't know if you could send that to him. And I know we talked about geothermal. It's a pretty expensive system. I don't remember how much it was. It was in the millions, right?
I think it was high.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking, I'm like, could you put it in as an ad alternate if for some reason your bids came in really low? And now you can afford to do a drink geothermal. But does that affect the design of the whole system of building systems, to try and now introduce geothermal?
Yeah, so it does. So there's two different ways to go about a geothermal system, right? So one is if you have a water-to-water heat pump, which effectively takes the place of a boiler, because you're heating water with energy coming, and the water's coming from obviously pipes in the ground, domestic water in the street, if you will. This is basically transferring groundwater. And the reason it's water to water is you want the groundwater over here and the building water over here, and they don't touch. We're not doing that type of system. We're doing air source heat pumps. It's instead of having a hydronic system, you have the VRF system, which is basically radiant heat, if you will. And so the situation we have is, if we did it as a bid alternate, we'd have to design a whole separate type of system. Right. So it would be, we're going to build the Apple under the base bid, and we're building the 4x4 Ford Toyota pickup truck with the alternate, and that's just a very difficult thing to do. Had we decided to use a water-to-water heat pump as part of our VRF system, we could have substituted those heat pumps for ground source heat pumps, but the situation is that that's not as energy efficient if you're not using geothermal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why at the very beginning of the project we kind of said, if we're going to consider geothermal, we have to do it now, because it's just the air source heat pumps are more cost effective, if you will, and energy efficient than if you were to put in a hydronic system like I just explained, that happen to be heat pumps that can transfer over to ground source heat pumps.
Yep. Okay.
So I think the bus has left the station when it comes to geothermal.
Okay, so if you can kind of summarize some of that and send that information to Andy, I think that'll hopefully answer his question.
Okay.
Okay. Any other mass save or energy? Okay. Please review the revision energy letter of intent.
So just an update on that. Revision Energy had reached out and asked if the town would be putting this out to bid. So they had sent you a letter of intent that basically says you intend to hire them, right? They then reached back out and said that they wanted me to confirm whether or not this would be going out to bid as a power purchase agreement. And it just so happened I had been talking to Matt Hafner about something else, and he said that it would definitely have to go out to bid as a power purchase agreement. So Revision Energy came back and said that they'd be happy to help us, but it's been their experience that when they provide assistance to a community and the community actually pays them for that upfront work, they are no longer eligible to bid on the project, to bid on a power purchase agreement. So I have asked them, and they're going to send it to me. In fact, they sent the Lexington, so the town of Lexington, and it happens to be their fire department, put out an RFP on the street that would choose a PPA provider for both design and installation, and lease and ownership down the road. So I'm taking the information from there, and I'm going to send it to you, Kevin, just in case the town is interested. The RFP would go out there, and just like any other RFP, you could say, and I read through the one from Lexington, Mass. It basically says you're going to assist in the design, you're going to put a performer together, you're going to install this, and then whatever the rates are, the financial model for the power purchase agreement. And I checked with Revision, you can end that at any point. In other words, they could do the design and you could say, oh my gosh, looking at this, the system's going to cost way too much money or not provide the power that we're looking for for that kind of money, and you just say, okay, we're stopping, you know. But if you're interested, they'd be more than willing to entertain an RFP for something like that. But they themselves don't want to enter into an agreement with you and then realize that they're not able to actually bid on the project.
So we would have to put an RFP out on the street, get responses, and then award. I mean, what's that going to do to our timeline? Are we already?
The timeline is fine. We've already talked to them about what they need. You know, so they've got the roof plan. You know, they're going to be able to tell us what they need. Just, you know, be conservative about it and say we need this much panel space in your mechanical room, which we actually have, right? Because during that phone call with them, you know, they were given some guidelines, and our project architect was on the phone with us, and you know, he was saying, yeah, we got plenty of panel wall space for those panels. Worst case, the panels can also be outside, up on the roof. The conduits and things like that, we're going to prepare that. That's all going to be in the documents, whether or not you do this now or later. So what we were trying to do is kind of get them on board so that they would be putting together all this information, so you would know exactly how big the kilowatt system was when we go out and talk to the community, and say, hey, this is going to be ready for a size of an array of this much, which would offset a certain percentage, because we know it's not going to be 100% given the size of the roof, but these solar panels will pay for this much percentage of our building load. We also wanted them to kind of give us one-line diagrams right now, so we could just make sure that all of this stuff will quote-unquote work. But as the fella from Revision Energy, Don, he put together, you know, basically saying it's all the same. You know, the inverters, the conduits going to them, you know, the wiring diagram may change, but you really don't need that to prep for the future. As long as you have the number of conduits and they're 5 inches and they go from point A to point B, we should be okay.
So the building will already be prepped for solar. Revision's just coming in to tell us what size system we could possibly put in.
Correct.
And if we go out to bid, though, it's not necessarily gonna. I know you said Revision has all this information. It's not necessarily gonna go to Revision.
Exactly. Yep. And you know, when it has gone out to bid in the past, Revision, I don't think they've gotten one of the projects that have gone out to bid, at least that I was involved in. You know, I think Revision Energy does so much work that everybody knows their numbers by now. I don't know if that makes sense. They've done so much work that, you know, people know what they charge.
Right. Was there any discussion of any portion of the parking lot being canopied either with solar panels, and what would that look like to getting us to where, you know, we'd be close to 100% for the building?
So actually, Andy suggested that the bylaws be reviewed to allow a solar canopy over a parking lot, and just our quick back of the napkin calculations, you would be net zero if you just put a canopy over the whole parking lot.
I just think it's something that an investigator look into, just, you know, kind of tracking the wave of what the future's going to be. I mean, you know, probably in the next 20 years, there's going to be a fully electric fire apparatus in this town. And, you know, if you have a way to charge it basically from the sun, let's say, you know, it's, you know, just thinking about the future, you know, and what potentially, you know, I know we talked about the 5% growth that's built into the building and that kind of stuff. Well, that's one of those things that, you know, if we're solar ready or ready, you know, I think that is, you know, a huge benefit to the project, because, you know, again, we won't be coming back saying, oh, we got to spend money to do X, Y, and Z. It's ready. It's just a matter of, you know, whichever energy company comes in, putting their infrastructure in place. But the you know, the pathways and everything are already set, and we're in place to, you know, to be a part of that future.
Was anybody else? I mean, I don't think it hurts to put an RFP out, as long as we can get out after the design. I think it doesn't hurt to at least get an RFP out there and see if we can have someone design it and see what sort of output we can get.
And we're doing everything else with the consideration of the environment. There's no reason not to do this.
Right.
It's a renewable resource, and there's plenty of sun on the site. You know.
So what do you need to do, Ron? Put together an RFP and we vote on it at the next meeting, or?
So I was gonna send you the actual one from Lexington,
Yep.
right? And then, just kind of take the actual RFP language and put it together in a Word document for you, so that, you have everything you need to modify or wordsmith or do whatever you want to do it, maybe review it with Matt. And, just say this is something we're interested in putting out. And you'll have the one from Lexington,
Yep.
just for reference.
All right, so if we can get that document, maybe then we can just kind of discuss what we want to do with it at the next meeting.
Yep. There is another way to do this. Stephen Strong owns a company called Solar Design Associates. And, he does offer design assistance. Again, with the meeting we had with Don from Revision Energy, I think, our team was okay with what we need to do in terms of prepping for this. But if we wanted to get even more detailed, we could reach out to Stephen Strong and ask him if he was available. With the timing of all this and knowing how everybody's busy, we figured it's not going to be worth by the time they can get to it,
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can ask him and see what his availability is and what that might run. But
because the reality is, one of the things, and this is the design piece of it, you have a good amount of flat roof area. If we put the parking lot canopy up, you're actually going to get more solar on the parking lot canopy than you're going to have on the roof, because we do have the sloped roofs, on at least the sides of the building and across the meeting room, the training room. So it was almost like asking for a solar shadow study to make sure that, if we put all these panels up, making sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck in terms of operating. The next piece of it is the technology is constantly changing, right? So how many kilowatts per square foot, or how many watts per square foot, I should say, does each panel give out? Because the panel technology is getting better and better.
So
So that was-
Ron, with respect to the solar panels going via canopy, are there any limitations as far as our bylaws, as far as the planning board, design review board? Are there going to be any issues with respect to those?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I don't think your bylaws allow it right now. So we probably, Aaron, you could speak more to this, but I think that I think we'd definitely be going for some kind of variance to allow this to happen. And that's why we just assumed it wasn't going to be a thing to pursue.
I mean, I know we talked about, at least at the last meeting, having the conduit in place to
Right.
somewhere out to the parking lot, so that if down the road that were to change, we'd be in a position to do it. So I don't know that taking that detour right now for a solar canopy is something that's worth the investment, but definitely having it prepped. I personally think they're kind of ugly, but if they serve a purpose, then that's fine, I suppose. Plus, it would have to be super tall anyway to accommodate the fire apparatus. I don't know what their standard height is, but it would have to be probably at least 16 feet or so.
I think they're taller than that. I think the ones I parked under, the one that I'm most familiar with is Lincoln Sudbury School. They buses have like another 8 or 10 feet of clearance over top of them, and they park the buses underneath them. So,
But it will change the look of the building.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Yeah, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
I think, Chief, the shortest you can make them is the same height as a highway overpass, which I think is 14 feet or 13.6. But I think the shortest one and that's 14 feet clear. So, you know, you'd want to make sure that anything can get under there. To your point about a bus or a fire truck or some kind of box truck or anything like that, you know, isn't going to have any issues with the clearance underneath the canopy.
I don't think a canopy will fly in our town center. That's going to be hideous.
The police station, yes, town center.
Yeah.
But I don't, if you can put the conduit in and then you know if something ever changes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's worth doing.
Being
Especially
solar
the-
ready, being having the whole project just be ready for what the future may hold, you know, is, I think, prudent to do.
Yep.
Do we know where the select board is in their agenda?
I don't, Amanda was gonna text me when we were up. We're getting
Okay.
close to being up, so.
You were up 10 minutes ago, Steve.
You did great. All right, if there's no other discussion on that item, we'll move on to the last discussion item, potential community event at the fire station open house. So we had talked about that this is part of fire prevention week, right? So you guys have an open house the last day.
October 15th.
So what is that, I mean, is that, would that lend itself to a presentation, or is it more people coming in and out where we should have the boards up and maybe like, you know, I'm free that day, I could stop by and talk to anybody that has questions?
I think it's both. I think we can put, you know, usually we have a kind of a schedule of events. We usually do some type of either extrication demonstration or a burn demonstration to demonstrate the benefit of residential sprinklers, or to show, you know, what fire behavior looks like in a residential living room or something like that. So we could just have it be something that we schedule. We start at 10 a.m. It can be something we kick off with, or something that we put in between a couple of, you know.
When do you usually have the most people there? Because
I would say, you know, the free pizza is a big draw.
okay,
Around
Well,
lunchtime.
yeah, maybe we
So, you know,
maybe we put it around there.
Yeah. So, you know, I think so. You know, putting it around lunchtime, I would say would be good. Maybe
Yeah.
people can eat and listen to a presentation, and then obviously we can have the boards up and, you know, have that up throughout the day. But, you know, maybe do a presentation specifically about, you know, we'll obviously be giving the station tours throughout the day, that kind of thing. But, you know, maybe the presentation part we can schedule for a specific time, and, you know, advertise that way.
Okay.
I know our union and the association has sent out the notes about, and our SAFE program sent out notes about the open house being on October 15th and starting at 10 a.m. So, you know, word's going to be out and spreading, so, you know, we can.
Yeah, I think if we can set something up around lunchtime, I can plan to come down and say, kind of run through just high level what we've been talking about in the past. Is anybody else available that day?
I'll be in Maine.
Yeah.
Todd's out, he's in Maine.
Come on.
I'll check real quick.
My daughter takes my.
Ron and Steve, you're welcome to come. It's a Saturday. I'm not going to ask you to come. So, but you can kick that one around.
He said free pizza, right?
He did say free pizza.
Alright, just checking.
I don't have anything going on that day so far, so
Yeah.
should be available.
Okay.
Same here. My kids love going to it anyway, so I'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe if maybe next meeting, if you come with a schedule of events or something, we can just figure out exactly what time it is and then get the word out. So, because I think we'll have another meeting before then and have 2 weeks before it, so.
Do we
Okay.
need to put this as a meeting if there's a certain number of us there?
We will, yes. Yep. So, we can discuss that too. Okay. That's all the discussion items we had. We've got a couple action items, but anything else that anybody wants to discuss before we move on to those? Nope. No. Please consider approval of proprietary items letter. Steve, I don't know if you have that ready.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have to defer that.
So I'll ask for a motion to defer approval of the proprietary items letter.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll take because Aaron's remote, we'll take a roll call vote. Aaron Hunt,
You're muted.
Chris Baker,
Aye.
Todd Lindmark,
Aye.
Justin Unosik,
Aye.
Chief Kinney,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, we'll postpone that item to the next meeting. Please consider approval of the final Doran Whittier Summary Informational Board and setup locations. We're gonna have to postpone this one as well, but I do have an update. So, let me get my notes here. Town Council talked to OCPF. They did not like the boards that you put together so far, Ron. They didn't have any, they said they were beautiful boards, but they felt that it was too, it advocated for the project too much. So it has to be very neutral. What they suggested was it say something like, just have a rendering of the fire station and say, townwide ballot question on new fire station, scan QR code to learn more.
Yeah, that works. We can do that.
Which I think still gets what we're trying to do, really.
Yeah.
Get the word out and encourage the participation.
Right, and just, if we have it in the library, if we have it in some place around town, people that don't know what's going on, at least see it, and hopefully scan. We could possibly do it on flyers too that we send out to everybody. I think we could get OCPF's read on that. Again, as long as it was fairly neutral. But what town council suggested, Ron, is if you want to put together that board and then I will send it to them and get their thumbs up, and then I think we're good to go.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Everybody okay with that?
Seems reasonable.
All right. So I'll ask for a motion to postpone approval of the informational boards to our next meeting.
So moved.
Second. All right. We'll take a roll call vote. Aaron Hunt,
Aye.
Chris Baker,
Aye.
Todd Lindmark,
Aye.
Chief Kinney,
Aye.
Justin Unosik.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right. So that is postponed, and I was told there are no meeting minutes to approve for this week. So we usually haven't voted to postpone that. So we'll stay consistent.
All right. I'd like to ask for a motion to postpone approval for the meeting minutes.
What's that?
There's no meeting minutes to approve.
Yeah, I think we can just skip it.
Oh, okay. Good. Thank you.
All right. Any other topics? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Donna?
I don't know if you're continuing into the select board meeting, or you're just appearing there.
I think
Because,
we're just appearing there.
so NCTV finished, the housing just started, so I'd say you have about 20 minutes at
Okay.
least until you're on the schedule over there.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna go home in between. Okay, thank you. So I'll still ask for it. I'll let the rest of you guys go if you want. Ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Aaron Hunt,
Aye.
Chris Baker,
Aye.
Todd Lindmark,
Aye.
Chief Kinney,
Aye.
Justin Unosik.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.